Two men walk into a BMW dealership service department. They do not know each other well. They are both senior figures inside the company. And when they discover why they have each brought their car in, the entire future of BMW changes. It is the late 1960s. Helmut Werner Bunch is BMW's director of product planning. Alex von Falkenhausen designed the M10 engine, the four-cylinder unit that powers the small BMWs of the period. Neither man is a junior employee, and yet both of them, entirely independently, without telling anyone at the company, have done the same thing to their personal cars. They have had the 2-liter version of the M10 engine removed from a larger BMW model and dropped into their own two-door 1602 bodies. When they realize what the other has done, the conversation that follows is not about embarrassment. It is about what they have both discovered, that the small two-door BMW body, fitted with the larger engine, is transformed. It becomes a car that combines the practicality of a compact four-seater saloon with the performance and road manners of a genuine sports car. It feels, to both men, like one of the best balanced machines they have ever driven. And the fact that a senior planner and the engine's own designer have arrived at the same conclusion independently is not coincidence. It is evidence. They prepare a joint proposal for the BMW board. And, at almost the same moment, a New York-based importer named Max Hoffman, the man who had previously persuaded Mercedes-Benz to build the 300 SL Gullwing and Porsche to build the 356 Speedster, is sending BMW precisely the same request from across the Atlantic. He wants a sportier version of the two-door range for the American market. Something with more performance than the 1600, sold at a price a working enthusiast can reach. The BMW board approves the proposal. The car that results is the BMW 2002. A machine so fundamentally right that it would sell approximately 400,000 examples over 8 years, build BMW's entire reputation in the United States from almost nothing, inspire the creation of 2 BMW owners' clubs in America, and lay the philosophical and engineering foundations for every driver-focused BMW that would follow it for the next half-century. Nobody at BMW expected it to do any of that. That is precisely why this story is worth telling. To understand why the 2002 was unexpected, you need to understand what BMW was in the 1950s, not the company it is today, and not even the company it was about to become. The BMW of the mid-1950s was a manufacturer in genuine financial crisis, held together partly by the production of an Italian-designed Sedan bubble car built under license, and partly by the BMW 700, a small rear-engined car that had more in common with the Volkswagen Beetle than with any BMW that preceded it. These were not cars that carried sporting ambition. They were cars that kept the factory running. The Suez Crisis of 1956 made things worse, not better. The disruption to fuel supplies across Europe depressed demand for larger cars and created a market that rewarded economy above everything else. BMW was already selling the Isetta and the 700, partly because the economics of the moment demanded exactly those products, and they were doing so with a factory and an engineering tradition that had been built around something entirely different. The tension between what BMW needed to sell and what BMW wanted to make was, by the late 1950s, becoming critical. The resolution, when it came, arrived through the new class. Beginning in 1962 with the 1500, BMW introduced a range of genuinely modern four-door saloons that used the new M10 engine, an overhead camshaft, cross-flow head, inline four-cylinder unit with hemispherical combustion chambers, designed by Alex von Falkenhausen. The Neue Klasse cars were sophisticated, well-built, and genuinely enjoyable to drive. They brought BMW back to profitability and, more importantly, they gave the company an engineering platform capable of development. By March 1966, BMW's 50th anniversary, a two-door version of the Neue Klasse concept was ready. This was the 1602, the name indicating a 1600 cubic centimeter engine in a two-door body. It was lighter than the four-door cars, better handling, and by any reasonable measure more fun to drive. The American press took to it almost immediately. Road and Track declared the American market price of $2,676, a great automobile for the price. BMW's American sales in 1966 were 1,253 cars. In 1967, helped by the 1602, they were 4,564. And it was at this point that the American importer Max Hoffman appeared. Born in Vienna in 1904, Hoffman had built one of the most improbable careers in automotive history. He had persuaded Mercedes-Benz to put the 300 SL Gullwing into production by personally committing to buy 1,000 of them. He had encouraged Porsche to build the 356 Speedster because he understood what American buyers wanted before they knew themselves. He had been BMW's sole American distributor since the early 1960s, and he had watched the 1602's reception in the American press with considerable interest. What Hoffman now told BMW was straightforward: the 1600 was selling. But the 1600's 1.573-liter engine could not meet the American emissions regulations that were about to come into force. And even before the regulations, the American market was asking for more power, more performance, and more car for the same money. He was telling BMW what the market needed. Two separate engineers inside the company were telling BMW the same thing from a different direction. The argument for the 2002 was forming from three independent sources simultaneously. The BMW board approved the project. Production of the 2002 began in January 1968. The car's name followed a formula that BMW had already established. The first two digits indicated the engine displacement in liters, the last two, the number of doors, 2,000 cubic centimeters. 2 doors, 2002. The logic was, as with most good ideas, entirely obvious once someone had stated it. The BMW 2002 weighed 960 kilograms. In 1968, that number matters enormously. The American muscle cars of that period weighed between 1,400 and 1,700 kilograms. The Jaguar E-Type weighed over 1,200 kilograms. Even the Alfa Romeo Giulia, one of the most driver-focused European saloons of the period, weighed well over 900 kilograms in most configurations. The 2002 was light. Genuinely, meaningfully, consequentially light. Into this light body, BMW fitted the 2-liter version of von Falkenhausen's M10 engine with a single Solex carburetor and 100 brake horsepower. The car was 4-speed manual, rear-wheel drive, with MacPherson strut front suspension and a semi-trailing arm rear axle. Nothing in the specification was exotic or unusual. But the combination compact dimensions, low weight, adequate power distributed through a rear-wheel drive chassis with properly sorted geometry produced something that the specification sheet could not quite capture. The 2002 did not feel like a compact saloon with a sporting engine dropped in. It felt, to every journalist who drove one in 1968, like a car that had been designed from the outset around the act of driving. The steering was accurate and communicative. The gear change was precise. The suspension absorbed road imperfections without losing composure on bends. Car and drivers David E. Davis Jr. wrote what would become the defining assessment of the car. A piece that placed the 2002 as an antidote to the thundering but one-dimensional Detroit muscle cars and the wheezy roadsters that defined automotive enthusiasm in the late 1960s and early 70s. The 2002, Davis argued, offered something those cars could not: a complete package, performance and practicality, pleasure and everyday usability. Not a compromise between them, but a genuine synthesis. This was the insight that Bunch and von Falkenhausen had reached independently in their personal cars, and that the 2002 now offered to anyone who could find the money. In 1968, That money was approximately the same as the price of a Chevrolet Impala, a full-size American family saloon. For that price, you could have the Chevrolet, or you could have something that car and driver was calling one of the finest driving experiences available at any price. BMW's American sales in 1968, the first year the 2002 was on sale there, reached 9,172 units. In a single year, sales had doubled. The BMW Car Club of America was founded in Boston. The BMW Automobile Club of America was founded in Los Angeles. The brand that had been selling fewer than 250 cars a year in America in 1963 had, in 5 years, created an enthusiast community large enough to support 2 national clubs. The model range expanded with purpose. The 2002 Ti Touring International arrived with twin Solex 40 carburetors, a higher compression ratio, 120 brake horsepower, larger front disc brakes, stiffer suspension, and wider wheels. It was not sold in America because it could not meet American emissions standards, but in Europe, it gave the 2002 range its first genuinely sporting character. 16,448 were built. In 1971, the 2002 Ti arrived. The Ti's carburetors were replaced by Kugelfischer mechanical fuel injection, the same system used on contemporary racing machinery, which raised output to 130 brake horsepower, improved throttle response, and made the engine's delivery more consistent across a wider range of conditions. Top speed was 115 miles per hour. The Ti could reach 60 miles per hour in approximately 8 seconds. In a 1971 road car with 4 seats and a usable boot, those are figures that made the contemporary Porsche 911 look over its shoulder. The Ti was the car that the BMW enthusiast community in this audience remembers as the definitive 2002 for driving. It is not wrong to think of it that way. The M10 engine that powered all of these cars proved, over the following decades, to be one of the most significant 4-cylinder units ever produced. Its bottom end was so robustly engineered that it remained in production for decades, serving as the basis for the S14 engine fitted to the original E30 M3, and, more remarkably, for the BMW Formula One turbocharged engine that powered Nelson Piquet to the 1983 World Championship. A car that started as a sales fix for the American emissions regulations was carrying one of motorsport's most celebrated engines in its bloodline. The 2002's motorsport career was not a calculated program executed by a manufacturer with a clear plan. It was an organic accumulation of results, driven partly by the factory, partly by private teams, and partly by the simple fact that a light, well-sorted car with a reliable and tunable engine tends to win things if the people driving it are committed enough. The factory's own racing effort produced remarkable results early. In June 1969, Dieter Quester and Hubert Hahn won the European Touring Car Championship race at Brands Hatch in Kent in a factory-developed, turbocharged 2002 competition car, producing approximately 250 brake horsepower. In 1970, Hans-Joachim Stuck and Clemens Schickentanz won the inaugural 24 hours of the Nürburgring in a 2002. In 1971, the Polish driver Sobieław Zasada, who had already been European Rally Champion in 1966 and 67, won the European Rally Championship outright in a 2002 Ti. His rivals in second and third place were Sandro Munari on a Lancia and Jean-Pierre Nicolas on an Alpine Renault, names that the rally community of this generation will recognize as anything but easy competition. In the 1973 inaugural World Rally Championship season, Achim Warnbold and his co-driver Jean Todt, who would later become one of the most significant figures in Formula One, as team principal of Ferrari, and then president of the FIA, won the Austrian Rally in a 2002 Ti. The car was winning at the highest levels of international rallying in the same year that BMW was about to do something with it that nobody, including BMW themselves, had fully anticipated. At the Frankfurt Motor Show in September 1973, BMW unveiled the 2002 Turbo. It was Europe's first turbocharged production car. The engine was the TII unit with a KKK twin-scroll turbocharger, a revised cylinder head with larger combustion chambers, reducing compression to 6.9 to 1 to prevent detonation, and the Kugelfischer fuel injection system modified to manage boost. Output was 170 brake horsepower. Top speed was 211 km per hour, 131 miles per hour. 0 to 60 took 6.7 seconds, which placed it in the company of genuine sports cars of the period. The bodywork announced its intentions without subtlety: a front air dam, wheel arch extensions in fiberglass, a rubber spoiler on the boot lid. The instrument panel was red. The speedometer read to 240 km per hour. The side decals carried the BMW Motorsport colors. And on the front air dam, in large lettering, were the words Turbo 2002, written in reverse, so that the driver of the car ahead could read them in his mirror. BMW has since described the 2002 Turbo as a car that contradicted the spirit of the times like no automobile before. That is a diplomatic way of describing what happened next. The 1973 oil crisis arrived almost simultaneously with the car's launch. Fuel prices across Europe doubled, and then doubled again. The Arab oil embargo created queues at petrol stations in Germany, Britain, and France. Several countries imposed Sunday driving bans. And into this environment, BMW had released a car with reversed Turbo 2002 lettering designed to intimidate the driver ahead of you. 1,672 2002 Turbos were built before BMW ended production. At auction today, they regularly achieve six figures. The timing was catastrophic. The car itself was not. The turbo lag was significant by modern standards. The boost, arriving suddenly above 4,000 revolutions per minute, which demanded a degree of commitment from the driver and rewarded those who planned their exits from corners carefully. But the engineering was genuine, the performance was real, and the car established a point of principle that BMW would not abandon: that a turbocharged four-cylinder, in a small body, managed with sufficient sophistication, could deliver supercar performance in a car that a working driver could live with every day. That principle, expressed in the 2002 Turbo in 1973, became the entire philosophical basis for the M division in the decades that followed. The Turbo was a commercial failure and an engineering milestone. Sometimes, in the car business, those two things happen to the same car at the same time. The BMW 2002 was created by coincidence, shaped by a New York importer's commercial instinct, and approved by a board that was looking at American emissions regulations as much as driving pleasure. None of those are the ingredients that usually produce legendary cars, and yet the 2002 is, by any measure, exactly that. It put BMW on the map in the United States in a way that no amount of marketing or planning had managed before it. It demonstrated that a car could be simultaneously a practical daily tool and a genuinely rewarding driver's machine, a combination that had been presented as a contradiction by almost everyone else in the industry. It won rally championships and touring car races in its standard and modified forms. It produced a turbocharged variant that established Europe's first production turbo car and laid the engineering groundwork for a Formula One World Championship. And it generated, from approximately 400,000 examples built over 8 years, a brand loyalty in the American market that BMW's management in Munich had not known was possible. The two things that Bensch and von Falkenhausen discovered independently when they drove their privately modified 1600s, that the light body and the larger engine produced something that felt genuinely complete, genuinely balanced, genuinely right, turned out to be a truth that the market confirmed several 100,000 times over. The best decisions in the car business are rarely the ones that look boldest on paper. They are the ones where two engineers happen to drive the same car on the same day, realize they have been thinking the same thing, and decide to say so out loud. If you drove a 2002, or if you still have one, or if you remember the first time you sat in one, and understood what all the conversation was about, we want to hear from you. The comments section is yours. Those cars carried real driving lives, and the people who remember them are keeping something alive that matters. If this program has been worth your time, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. We make these films for the audience that knows these cars not as collectibles but as machines that were genuinely driven and genuinely felt. Thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next one.